Hi, this is Jayne Sommers back again to talk a little bit about the Leadership and Student Affairs Master's Program at the University of St. Thomas in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm the program director and one of the primary faculty members here in the program. I wanted to invite a couple of other students. There's another video where a couple of other students talk about their experience in the program, but I wanted you to be able to hear from a couple others about their time in the program and sort of what they're gaining throughout the process of the program. So I will allow them to introduce themselves and then we'll do more stuff.
Yeah. Hi, so I'm Evette and I'm a second year in the program this year. I currently work as a graduate hall director at the University of St. Thomas on the St. Paul campus. And I did my undergrad at Northwest Missouri State University, where I got my bachelor's in mass media and multimedia journalism.
And my name is Kian. I'm a first year in the program. I did my undergrad at Hope College in Holland, Michigan. I got my degree in French and English with a minor in studio art. And I'm a grad assistant at in campus life over on the St. Paul campus, and then also a graduate intern at the University of Minnesota doing global leadership development.
Cool. So I was hoping to have you guys share a little bit about kind of how you came across this program, how you ended up here. So Kian, if you wouldn't mind sharing sort of your process to this program, that'd be great.
So as an undergrad, I was very involved in different student leadership positions and different activities. And so I found out about my junior, senior year that I was interested in this as a field professionally. And so I started looking into different programs, and I was meeting with the Dean of Students at Hope and giving him my list of schools that I was interested in. And he mentioned the University of St. Thomas, since I'm from the Twin Cities originally. It was not on my radar. I didn't know they had a program, and I wasn't looking at any schools in Minnesota. But because it was near my hometown, I was interested in it, and that's kind of where I started with St. Thomas.
Cool. Glad to have you.
Yeah. So how I kind of came about the program. So I'm gonna like mirror Kian a little bit and see how I kind of got to that process of why student affairs is. I was involved in residential life and student media throughout all of my college experiences, and just I realized that student affairs, working with students, what I kind of want to do for a good majority of my life. And then so my supervisors and mentors are like, oh, you should go to OPE, which is the Oshkosh Placement Exchange, where you go to find a student affairs job, whether it be an assistantship, a GA, or a full-time job. And so I was perusing the website, and one of my desk assistants, he's originally from Minnesota, and he's like, oh, University of St. Thomas, that's a really good school. I was like, I don't know anything about it. I've never heard of it before because I'm not from around these parts and all. And so I looked into it, and then, here I am.
Right.
So,
the rest is history.
Yeah.
As they say. I think it's important to point out that while these two shared experiences of being involved in undergrad in student leadership positions, many of our students do have that experience of sort of the light bulb coming on in terms of student affairs being a thing or being a field that one could go into professionally. That does happen for a number of our students in undergrad, but for many of our students, it doesn't happen until later. It didn't happen for me until I had a number of different life experiences and then realized, oh wait, that might be what I want to do. And so our students come from a variety of different places. Some of our students come straight from undergrad if they've had experiences of people, identifying our program and this field for them in that timeline. We also have students who are coming from working full-time in nonprofits or K-12 education, even some folks who come from the corporate world and have realized that actually they have a desire to work on a college campus with college students. So there's a variety in terms of background, of experience and identity within our students, but there's a common thread of identifying a desire to help people, but a little bit more specifically to contribute to the experience of folks who are pursuing higher education. So for many, that's working at a 4-year institution with traditional aged college students. For some, it's working at a 2-year institution where the focus is on educating more non-traditional aged students or students who have who are maybe going to school part-time and working toward an associate or associate's degree or planning to transfer to a 4-year institution. So across the board, there's a desire to be involved in higher education on the student affairs or administrative side. So you're at different points in the program and are sort of at different points in your career and learning and preparation for the field. So Kian, what have you found that you appreciate most about the program so far?
So being a first year, a big focus right now for me is my graduate assistantship, which for the most part, most of the students in this program have one. Not everybody does. There are some who are working full-time still in their field. But I am a graduate assistant on the St. Paul campus in campus life, and then an intern at the University of Minnesota. And I really appreciate the ability to be applying the theory that we're learning in the classroom to the tangible practical work that we're doing. I don't have to go through this program saying when I am a professional or in the future when I'm doing this work, I get to think about the knowledge that we're taking in class and the conversations we're having and thinking about them within the context of the job that I have currently, which I really appreciate. And then that also works in the other way too, where what I'm doing in the office, what I'm learning from my colleagues and from my supervisor, I'm able to then bring into the classroom and have that help inform my participation in discussion or help me inform my writing and my reading. So,
you've talked before about the fact that your student colleagues are working at different types of institutions. Do you feel like that informs what our conversations are like in the classroom?
Absolutely. So Evette and I are both grad assistants at St. Thomas, but not everybody in the first and second year of the program are at St. Thomas. The Twin Cities has a lot of different institutions and a lot of different types of institutions. So some of them are 2-year programs. There's a lot of technical colleges as well. There's the small private institutions like St. Thomas are smaller, but then there's also the University of Minnesota, which is a way different type of school. And so there's a really good variety of higher education experience that we as students are getting in our assistantships. And so we're able to bring that, and that's really diversifying the conversations that we have in class. And I think that's really beneficial.
And as an instructor, it's just fantastic to have students who come from different experiences in undergrad, but then also are getting different experiences professionally. So a student might share their experience or perspective from a 4-year private religiously affiliated institution. And then because our students become close through the cohort model and take courses together, they develop a relationship where they can say, well, that's not the only way it happens. Where a student is working in a 2-year institution, they could sort of talk about what they've seen with their students or their experience. So we're teaching each other. We're sort of mutually accountable for the learning. And so it's just great for me as an instructor to be able to sort of pass it on to you all to teach each other about your experiences and how you're seeing that theory come to life in your practice.
Yeah.
Another way that that theory to practice thing, I think, shows up in the program is that while I'm the primary faculty member and I teach a number of the courses in the program, I also am intentional about making sure that our students are taking courses from adjuncts who are current full-time practitioners in the field. So for example, there's a course on administrative leadership in student affairs, which I think that might mention the practicality of in a minute, but that historically is taught by folks who are senior student affairs officers and can really bring sort of their real-time, real-life experience of practicing administrative leadership. So it's important that while I have years of experience working as a student affairs practitioner, it's important for me to acknowledge that I'm now not I'm not in practice, so to speak. So it's important that my students are learning from folks who are doing it day to day. So Evette, you're a second year with graduation looming around the corner, which brings with it a job search. So as you're preparing for that process and those interviews, how would you say the program has prepared you professionally and academically for the job that you want?
Yeah. So I know that this program has just given me the experience and the building blocks that I need just to snag that job that I want, whether that be through the theory to practice piece that Kian was talking about, or other things. It's just really has given me those building blocks through just like learning the skills and just like competencies and theories, best practices, etc. From some of those classes, such as that administrative leadership and student affairs class, like Jayne mentioned, how to balance a budget, how like those things that are really scary that you don't want to know how to do, but you have to know how to do. Those administrative leadership, student affairs, I just said that. Leadership and organizational theory of, learning how a team just like meshes together. And I found that that's been really super important, and not only being a part of a larger team in a department, but also supervising and running a team as well in my residence hall, learning how people fit together like that. Student development theory, things that you use every day that you're going to have to know how to use and apply, in specifically the area that I want to work in, which is housing and residence life, to where you work with students every day with conduct and stuff like that, and then like future trends in student affairs, like how is this field changing, so I can become better trained, I can lead students better, things like that. And then, just through doing the coursework and, the whole theory practice piece, it's really given me that validation that I think I needed to know that, I can do this. You can do it, but you don't really know you can do it until you actually do it, right? And then just having that confidence that, you don't always know you need. And so I know, and then like also it's just this program has really helped prepare me to go out and network with different professionals, whether that be through HESA, Higher Education and Student Association. I got it right. There we go. Always use the acronym, right? I've been networking events through them, resume critiques, things of that nature, or just getting involved in professional organizations and associations, whether they be functional area specific, which in turn, opens up doors for internships and things of that nature over the summertime, and then future job opportunities, right? So I think just really it's prepared me through giving me the tools that I need, learning how to apply those tools, and then I think also just learning how to speak up for myself and advocate for myself and the students I'll be serving as well. So.
Yeah, that networking piece is something that can be really intimidating to folks, particularly folks who perhaps lie on the introverted side of the spectrum. Not, but I love many folks who are. So I try to be conscious of that when I talk about the practice of networking and the fact that it doesn't have to be this room full of people with name tags on and this really sort of intimidating walking up and trying to be clever to someone you don't know, but that networking can also take the form of doing informational interviews. So I require for different assignments students to meet with folks who are practitioners in the field and build their network sort of one person at a time that way. But it's not really one person at a time, because as soon as you're connected to that person, then there's this whole other web of folks who are connected and who may know your name. And also, I think it's important to think of networking as something as little as just doing your job and working on committees and building relationships with other people, and sort of showing your competency by doing your work, as opposed to sort of that elevator speech of here's who I am and what I want, hire me, or So I think I do my best to kind of demystify or make the concept of networking a little less intimidating for folks who see it as this really scary thing. So yeah. Are there any other things you would like to share with the world about your experience in the program? Or things you wish you had known?
Did you want to talk about where we see ourselves going?
Yeah, sure. So students leave our program with a variety of kind of career aspirations or functional areas that they see themselves working in. The fact that we require our students to have 2 practicum experiences, 2 different experiences working in different areas of student affairs, is purposeful in that it exposes them to different ways of thinking about how we do this work. So I'm always interested to know where students sort of start out wanting to go, and then as they learn more or are exposed to functional areas that they didn't know existed or connect with people within the field, how that shifts and changes. Or for some folks, it's just sort of like, yes, this is absolutely right. I'm going to stay this path and then see where it takes me. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing where you see what you see yourself doing with this degree, which is always a fun question that folks ask, like, what do you do with that? And our field sometimes requires a little bit of explanation. Are you babysitting college students? What does this look like? So, so you also learn how to explain that to your uncle. But yeah, so where do you see yourself going at this point in your career, sort of knowing that it could change?
Yeah. Do you want to go first? Or do you
Sure, yeah, I can go first. So I think coming into this program, I had a very narrow view of what student affairs was, right? Because in undergrad, I'm like, oh, residence life. Sure, that's right? And then I didn't realize all these other things that, make up a whole division.
Right. It's not just residence life, no? Yeah.
No. But last year I was fortunate enough to hold 2 assistantships, one in residence life and one in campus life. And then I think it really just like opened up my view of all these other possibilities that that I could do. Working with leadership programming, that's really fun for me. I really enjoyed it. But I also like working in a residence hall, right? So this is my plan. Okay, so I'm gonna start off in res life. So I'm looking at res life jobs now, right? I also think I'm not 100% ready to be a full-fledged adult.
Fair.
But I think I'll probably make the switch to like a campus activities, or like a trio bound like role. Like through the past year and a half, I've just really found I really enjoy working with first generation college students, students who maybe higher education isn't very accessible to them. And so looking at those different areas and things like that. But so probably same that area, student activities, residence life, maybe crossover dean of students, because like Title IX work also really, fires me up as well. So
what I like hearing about that, and having worked with you and taught you over the last year and a half, what I think you've honed is your ability to develop students, develop capacities in students. So working in residential life, you've been able to supervise students and help them create a team and sort of develop their own capacities to be leaders. And then, it seems to me you're interested in student activity. Everything you mentioned certainly has like a student development component to it, sort of right at the front. And so from our time together, it seems that your experience professionally and what we've done in the classroom has helped you kind of figure out what you're good at, and looking at jobs where you get to do that all day long, because that doesn't feel like work. So
developer is my number one.
There it is. Yeah. So you're figuring out ways to develop others, informed by your experience in the program. Cool.
Yeah.
How about you?
So coming into this program, I was most interested in doing campus life or student life work, so student activities. My undergrad was a much smaller school, about half the size of St. Thomas's undergrad population alone. So St. Thomas feels huge to me, and then also being at the University of Minnesota, that feels like it is really, it's overwhelming.
It's like a city.
Yeah, so I think I'm gravitating more towards the mid-sized to smaller campuses, and as doing something where I'm doing face-to-face work with students as much as possible is what I'm hoping to do. So student life is where I think I'll end up, but in the last 4 months since starting this program, the area of health and wellness in student affairs has become really interesting to me. I've gotten to do a lot of research and some more formal academic work around that, which has been really cool. And I don't know yet what that would look like on the other side of graduation, but it's something that I'm considering.
Yeah, and it's definitely sort of a hot topic in student affairs and in higher education. How do we contribute to and teach students to, how do we contribute to their wellness, and how do we teach them to think critically about living their best life in terms of wellness? What I love that you identified, Kian, was prior to that, prior to thinking about functional area, you also talked about the idea of values discernment in terms of what type of institution you'd like to be at. So I asked that question along the way, particularly as students are getting professional experience at different types of institutions, because you do start to develop this sort of like, there's something about this that just doesn't jive, but you don't know that until you've had experience at different types of institutions. So not only knowing what functional area appeals to you, but also what type of institution do you think you would thrive at.
Exactly.
That's great. Thanks for sharing your stories. And who knows, maybe we'll have future installments of
that would be fun.
Fireside chats.
Can we get a fireplace?
Yeah, I would love that. Little gas stove. If you're interested, one thing we didn't say is how much fun we have in the classroom and in the program. We get into it. It's not always pretty, and we challenge each other to grow and think critically about things, but I always try to make sure that we're having a good time too. So if you're interested in learning more about the program, or even submitting an application to the program, you can email Jameson, who is our graduate assistant for the program, at SOE-LSA. So that's stands for the School of Education and the Leadership and Student Affairs Program. So SOE-LSA at stthomas.edu. And Jameson would be happy to answer any questions and direct you to the appropriate website links and more information about our program. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.